In this lesson, we will talk about the components and the different files of our Angular 2 application. First, open up your Visual Studio Code IDE and then open your Angular 2 project file. On the left panel, click the File Explorer. And then you will see the list of files and folders of our app. First, let's go to the config folder. In here, you will see the configuration files for environment, karma, and protractor. This will help you to create different environments for your application, whether it be in production, test, or development environment. As you can see here, you have a version of a JavaScript and then a TypeScript. The JavaScript files has a file extension of .js, and for TypeScript, it has a file extension of .ts. Next, let's move to the dist folder. Dist stands for distribution, and it's used for production deployment of our application. Now, as you can see here, you see the app folder and the vendor folder. And then, you have your main.js and main.js.map and other files. Let's take a peek in the app folder. We have here our .html files, JS files, and map files. But, can you tell me what's missing? So, if you can look back to our app component.ts, this one has been transpiled to this. And for those who are not familiar with the .map files, basically, it is being used for debugging our application. This map file is very helpful to debugging minified version of JavaScript. The dist folder also includes favicon.ico and then our index.html file. Now, let's move to the E2E folder. This contains the different config files for end-to-end testing. Next is the node modules. Basically, this folder contains all of the dependencies of our Angular 2 app. Think of this folder as a library of our dependencies, which is managed by our Node Package Manager. Then, we also have our public folder. This folder is used for production, and as you can see, it's still empty. When we are ready to deploy our application, this public folder will be in use. And last but not the least, we have our source folder, or SRC. This is where we put the source files of our application. We have the app folder, which contains our TS files and other HTML and CSS files, and we also have the system config files, tsconfig.json, and typings. The app folder is where we add the components, services, directives, and many more source files for our Angular 2 application. The main.ts file is the main module of our application. The system.config.ts is a dynamic module loader for System.js. The tsconfig.json is our TypeScript. This indicates that the source folder is the root directory of our TypeScript file. Now, for typings.d.ts, these are the reference files to manage the TypeScript definition. You also have this typings folder, which basically contains other typings config files. The Angular-CLI JSON and Angular CLI build.js are files used by Angular CLI. One of the most important files is a package.json. This is being used by npm to define the dependencies of our application. You can also define here the basic information of your application. You have the name, the version, license, and the different scripts. You have here the readme.md and the tslint.json. If you're not familiar with lint, basically it's a code checker that finds common mistake on your JavaScript files as well as your TypeScript files. And there you go. That's the whole anatomy of our Angular 2 application. In our succeeding lessons, we will focus on creating components, directives, and other source files in our source folder